Let's start this off with me saying I've never seen the movie Cars, nor do I want to. The game is probably the closest I will ever get to the franchise. So if I've never seen the movie, why the fuck am I talking about it? Well, because it's a game. Now, since that's done, let's talk about the game. What you are seeing here is the PlayStation 2 version, but it was released for every home console and handheld at the time. Published by THQ and developed by Rainbow Studios in 2006, who are now better known for the MX series. And obviously the game is based on the movie because tie-in games always have to be a thing for some reason. And while movie tie-in games are mostly a miss, regardless if you've seen the movie or not, some of those still can be decent or even good. The Thing, Chronicles of Riddick, King Kong, The Warriors or GoldenEye are classic examples where most people simply agree that they are decent to good. If you've seen the movie Cars, you can judge it for yourself. I, however, am going to judge it as just a game. And as a side note, don't mind the German text in the game because I am playing the German version. But outside of the language, there is no other difference that I know of. So, from what I understand, this game plays after the original movie. You start the story with the main hero, Lightning McQueen, a somewhat cocky but still kind of likable character. So it seems. Everything starts with you controlling McQueen and racing against other cars that will play a major role in your journey to be the champion. But as it turns out, it was all a dream, and here is where the real game actually starts. You now have the goal to enter the Piston Grand Prix and win it. Again, I assume. But up until that point you have to get in shape, so you will have to race here and there against others to be able to compete on a high tier level. Essentially, that is the plot, and while fine for what it still is very bare bones. I mean, there are plot points where some characters seem to go somewhere, but everything falls flat hardcore. For example, there is a mission where you play as these dudes that are attempting to stop McQueen from entering the next race. So, in a Fast and the Furious style, they assault a truck to stop McQueen from entering the next major league race. That was actually quite a cool scene, especially because this is the only time you actually play as the bad guys, but literally the next mission is McQueen beating all of those dudes at once and getting the stuff back. I mean, why not go a bit further with it, like tracking them down, challenging them to a race or some other kind of event, and defeating them one by one? Yes, also getting your stuff back little by little. And now that I think about it, since the game doesn't really have a story, this could have been the story. You know, since this supposedly plays after the movie, those new bad guys assault the truck and rob your stuff and you have to get it all back with the help of your friends or something. And then by the time the last championship starts, then you finally have all your stuff back and can go all out against the villain. Because you see, what those Fast and Furious guys did was because a car called Chick or something ordered them to do so. I assume he's also the villain in the movie, so he could be the final challenger that you have to defeat in the final race. Or another occasion where Chick is a very bad loser and challenges you to the final race until McQueen challenges him back to multiple races instead. When that happened, I thought that after the last race and McQueen's victory, that Chick would finally admit that he isn't the better racer, or at least to have some conclusion with him in the end. But no, there is no conclusion. You win the final race and suddenly the credits roll. I was rather stunned that there was no conclusion with Chick at all. I even waited until the after credits, but nothing. McQueen only goes on to another adventure, possibly followed up by the second movie. But that's about it. But no, none of those possibilities were meant to be for some reason. So what we've got is a bare bones story. Actually, not even that. The game doesn't really have a story at all, and seeing what it could have been, it's quite a shame that nothing came of it. Now you may say, nah, who cares, it's just a kid's game anyway. To where I say, does that mean they don't deserve to play a game with a good story? That's a pretty lame ass excuse, boy. So, as you've probably noticed, Cars takes place in Radiator Springs, and yes, you can drive around in this open world-esque world all you like. And while Radiator Springs is the main area, you still have access to Tailfin Pass and Ornament Valley. But honestly, the only thing you can do while driving around and entering events are either collecting these coins or collecting postcards from one of the early minigames. Now the postcards basically just clear that said event, while you can use the coins to unlock various skins for each car you can control during the game, which is why sometimes you will see McQueen with different skins in this video. Outside of those coins that respawn after a while, there is not much reason to drive around Radiator Springs because there is literally nothing else to do. It's like Rainbow Studios created this decently sized open world, but had no real idea what to do with it, which seems like a wasted potential. Since there are quite a few cars driving around already, you should be able to challenge them to a race or something outside of the main story. And I actually even tried to do that, but no luck. You will have 5 league races in total in fictional speedway tracks, but before each race you will have to get access to them by getting enough trophies as well beating enough events. Because no matter how many trophies you've gained, and no matter if you have more trophies than necessary to enter a specific league race, you can only enter those races by beating most events, which, well, that makes the trophies basically useless, but, well, whatever. So those events, most of them are races, but others are collecting postcards, finding tires, trying to catch other cars, etc. And while a nice idea to make the game less monotonous, in the end it still ends up being monotonous if you want to be a completionist. Because the postcards collecting is beyond boring, and since they are all around Radiator Springs, they can be everywhere and you have not the slightest indication where. What makes this event really boring is not only the task itself, that would be fine, but the fact that Radiator Springs, Tailfin Pass and Ornament Valley are so empty because it's mostly desert. So you will see a lot of the same brown colors and rather monotonous world of cars. Tailfin Pass may offer a bit more variation, as well as speedway races, but other than that, the game tends to be unnecessarily tedious with its few tedious tasks, like postcard collecting. Another one is the tire collecting. Later on you will find this Italian car that wants you to find its tires, but you don't just do this once, you have to do it multiple times. And after the second time you want to stick those tires up his Italian ass. At least the Italian himself does it, and not McQueen. But that's also another thing. A few races and events are not done with McQueen himself, but different cars that are part of the franchise. While I get that McQueen is the main character, maybe a few more races and events with Sally or whoever they are would have helped defeat the tediousness of the game. But on the other hand, while each car has its stats, they all feel exactly the same, which is quite a shame. But sticking to the events, another one that I did until the end, but I was seriously about to fall asleep, is this Tractor Awakening event where you have to drive around during the night, waking these tractors up and avoiding lights and this wind thrower or whatever it's called. The idea itself is actually fine because it has a puzzle-like aspect to it, and despite it being mostly easy but a bit harder towards the end, the fact that you have to do so many just to get all trophies makes this event really boring. The only minigame I actually liked was this military major pain event where you had to avoid obstacles by jumping, use a nitro that you get later on in the game, or use your power slide. And you only had to do 3 events in a row with increased difficulty each time, so it didn't feel that monotonous to go through it. But yeah, this issue also has to do with the overall difficulty, which is beyond easy. Yeah, it's a kids game, I get it, so I can't expect much of a challenge, since the target audience, it's not me, so yeah, okay, it's a kids game. Now the races. Outside of the normal races, you also have, for example, this monster truck race, which is fine, but it's only a single event. But then again, if I consider the controls, then I am glad that it's only one event. Because here's the thing, the steering isn't necessarily bad, but not necessarily good either. It's just okay, and if the tracks don't have sharp corners, then it's actually fine. But once sharp corners happen, then you will have a hard time. Now sure, you can brake, use the handbrake, as well use the power slide, which is essentially a drift. Once you've learned the power slide, you won't ever need the normal brakes. You could assume. But in reality, the power slide isn't as responsive as it should have been. And I tried every controller I have to test this out, but no matter the speed, angle I enter the corner in, or whatever, there are quite few times where I want to slide, the car starts drifting, but suddenly it stops for no reason, which leads to you meeting the fucking wall. Or the drift doesn't even register to begin with, even though I am, or still am, pressing the button to drift. It's weird. At first I thought that the button is broken, so the drift suddenly stops midway, but as I've stated, I've used multiple controllers and the same thing happened with every single one. So sometimes you have to use the handbrakes, but then again, do you want to slow down your car that much? Because if you do, the opponents will immediately pass you if they are right behind you. Later on, you will learn the ability to drive in reverse without losing speed or anything, but why is it there? Because there isn't a single event where it's used. You can have some added challenge by driving backwards because the controls are in reverse, but that's about it. I really don't see the point of this. One thing that I really hate about the game is this damn weird auto positioning the camera does. If you hit something, or sometimes even when an event started, the camera positions itself in front of the car or to the side, and I have to constantly readjust it mid-race. This is incredibly distracting and beyond annoying. This is a minor annoyance, but still, to drive in reverse, not talking about reversing while racing, you have to press circle to stop the car and then press it again to finally drive in reverse or backwards. Why not just press the button once so the car stops and automatically drives in reverse? Why do I have to press it 2 times? The tracks can also be a bit annoying, because sometimes you don't even know where you are supposed to go, because the layout can be a bit confusing because the colors are so monotonous. But at least the sounds are fine, and I will assume that the music tracks are from the movie. For what it is, it's okay, but nothing beyond that. All the voices for the characters returned, so you will hear a lot of familiar voices. From what I hear, however, is that not every version of this game is the same, I'm not talking about graphically, because of course there would be major differences. I am more talking about the game itself, so maybe I will take a look at the PSP version of the game later on to see what's up. Now, I don't hate Cars, the game, for what it is, because in the end it's a simple kids game. But even for a kids game, it seems really weak and doesn't really use its chances all that much. However, only considering what it is in the game instead of what it isn't, but should have, even then it misses the mark. The cutscenes are rather well done, as well the voice acting, the music and overall sound is fine. Graphically, it also looks decent for a 2006 game, but the story is almost non-existent. The controls can be unresponsive at times. The D-pad for some reason feels really heavy compared to the analog stick, to the point where the car barely reacts. Even though it was a nice idea to include an open world, Radiated Springs still has a very boring and tedious feel to it, as do some events, and the damn camera changes constantly for no reason. But okay, for kids that are brand new to gaming and Cars is their first game ever, then this might be a decent experience, especially if they like the movie, but otherwise there are better games to waste your time on.